Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I hope everybody is having as good of a Wednesday as I'm having. It's beautiful. I don't know why, but it's beautiful. So, Beta Steve, which is my cute way of calling P&P News, because he's beta to betas. So there's your sign. The man is terribly upset with the police because his son is a career criminal. Sucks, Steve. And Steve's had more than his fair share of brushes with the law. Isn't that right, Steve? Anyway, old Beta Steve, he gets a video out of Michigan somewhere. Who knows where? Who really cares? And Steve's going to show us the tyrants in action. Video starts off, no sound. What was happening before, and why is there no sound? Those are good questions, and I, for one, am glad you asked. Sound starts rolling. If you listen close, unlike what Steve did, you can hear that the cops have pulled someone over for running a red light. If you listen, or running a stop sign. If you listen closely, you can hear the person admit to having ran the stop sign. Case closed, right? But my, one of the cops sees this guy, fixates on him like a dog on a dog treat. Just, this is somebody I need to be aware of. Calls for backup as soon as he makes contact. That's crazy, isn't it? A whole bunch of other people around there who aren't getting that kind of attention. That makes me think, I don't know about you, Steve, but I like to be a little critical about these things. But that makes me think that cop was seeing something that we, on this side of the screen, aren't seeing. Instantly, the gentleman who is filming is talking about police brutality. Instantly, but according to Steve, the guy handled himself well. Yes, Steve. Handled himself very well. Cop explained to him, there is a criminal trespass list. In other words, there are people who have been trespassed and are going to be arrested if they return to that particular property. That, and it's government property. It probably has rules about who can be on the property. And the cop apparently thinks that this guy is on the criminal trespass list. And this guy is not going to ID. And congratulations. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. He won silver bracelets. You could also hear the cop mentioning that another person had left their car idling and they were going to get a ticket. And of course, that person didn't know that was a crime or a infraction, I guess. Anyway, lots of good stuff there. Steve's analysis is that the cops had already caught the trespasser, which my mind is blown because they got somebody for rolling a stop sign. And that doesn't sound like trespass to me, but what do I know? I'm a first-year family law attorney. And then, of course, Steve calls for the obligatory call flood. Flood their Facebook. Call their phone lines because they arrested someone who apparently they thought was something bad. I mean, if cops are calling for backup like 2 seconds into their interaction with you, they're not just messing with you fishing for ID. You have to ask yourself why the cops weren't fishing for everybody else's ID. Unless you're Steve, of course. If you're Steve, it's just cops bad. He's a tyrant. And Steve's further analysis is that judges just rubber stamp. I mean, if you go in front of that trial court judge is going to rubber stamp it. That's Steve's opinion. Hey, Steve, did you commit the crimes you were convicted of? Did your son? It's a good question to ask, isn't it, Steve? Were they just rubber stamped, Steve? There is such a thing as due process, and I have never met a rubber stamp judge. Now, it doesn't mean they don't exist, but if a judge is constantly getting overturned on appeals, then there is going to be there are going to be people looking askew at that particular judge. The Bar Association, among others. Now, Steve's final point, because Steve knows these things, because he's Steve, and he's old, and he hangs out with criminals, so he knows that not only is the judge going to rubber stamp this, but this guy's going to appeal and probably win on appeal. Steve, do you know what grounds you can appeal for? Because you can't just appeal any old decision. I mean, the judge gives you a unfavorable decision. Maybe the judge is acting as the finder of fact. What level of review do they use? Can you just say the judge was wrong, Steve? Explain to us how this appeals process works, where the trial judge gets overturned most often, most likely. Because in what I like to call the real world of first-year family law, appeals generally don't win. Most appeals lose. Because again, the appeals court will defer to the findings of fact of the trial court. And they'll only overturn findings of fact by the trial court if there is no way to support that finding of fact. If you have 100 people say Joe Bob is innocent, and you have one person say Joe Bob is guilty, that's enough for the trial court, if the trial court is acting as the finder of fact, to determine that those 100 people are lying, and that one person who's saying Joe Bob is guilty is telling the truth. And most likely, that will not be disturbed by the Court of Appeals. But tell us how this mythical appeal system works, Steve. I would love to have your insight on the appeals process in criminal cases in Michigan. I'd love to have it. Anyway, I have made it almost 8 minutes. If you are mid-poop, cut it off. Thanks for watching. Have a great Wednesday.